Alright, so from here we can type quit to get out, and then I'm going to start the server back. Okay, I hope you're ready to have your mind blown. So just to show you how the database is connected for real, so we're dealing with the same stuff in the web browser and in the Rails console. Refresh, and we should have a new to-do item that we created through the console, which is really cool. Okay, so let me see where we're at. We're talking about the index action on here. So when I typed to-do.all in the Rails console, you saw that it brought back all of the to-do items in the database. So what we're doing here is we're setting this equal to what's called an instance variable. Now we'll get into instance variables and what all that stuff is later, but for now what you really need to know is that an instance variable with the @ sign is available to the view. So we haven't talked about views at all, so look down here in the views folder. Now this should look pretty familiar because it's HTML sort of. The way this works is, you see we have a to-dos controller. It's dealing with to-do objects here, and now we have a to-dos view folder. Now it's really important that these things all have the appropriate names, and that's how Rails knows to connect them. And we'll get into exactly the specifics on that. I think I may have talked about it in the article a little bit, but the important thing is that there is an index action, or an index action, that matches an index view inside the to-dos view folder. Okay, so let's crack open this index.html.erb, and don't worry about the index.json.jbuilder or any of this stuff. The one you want to deal with is the index.html. And what ERB stands for is embedded Ruby. So essentially what you have is you have an HTML document. As you can tell, it's not a complete HTML document. There's some other stuff going on here. It's a part of one. And what is actually happening is you have these ERB tags. So you have this less than % sign and then less than % equals. And the main thing I want to point out here is that you've got the @todos. So if we look back in that todos controller, we've got the @todos equals to-do.all. Then in the index action we have @todos.each do to-do, so on and so forth. So the main point I'm making is that you have access in the view to the data that you fetch in the controller from the database. So there's this thing called MVC, Model View Controller, and that's the pattern that we're dealing with here. So the model in here is this to-do model, and it doesn't really, there's not much code here at all. And we're not going to talk extensively about models. I may show you something in a minute that's pretty cool if I have time. But the important point is that it's inheriting from this thing called active record, which is part of Rails. And all that you need to know about that is, because of that, it has the ability to connect to the database. And you get those fancy methods that we saw, like .all, .new, and there's a bunch of other ones. So what we're doing is fetching stuff from the database and giving the view, which is rendered to the browser, access to the data through an instance variable. So let me walk you back through this whole process again so that you can understand. I'm going to give you a quick flyover again, and then I'm actually going to build something for you that I think you're going to like, and it's going to be really demonstrable. I don't know, what's the word? Anyway, it's going to demonstrate what we're talking about. So back at our high level overview. So the first thing, your app looks in the routes file, and it's going to find if there's a matching route, and it's going to tell your app where to go next, which is the controller and then the action. So we're going to hop over to the controller. So the controller looks up the appropriate data, to-do.all, stores that in the instance variable. And by the way, you can put anything in an instance variable. I could say @message equals hey good looking, and then I could come over here in my index action and print out. By the way, this equal sign means print it out, and without the equal sign it just calculates something or processes something. Sorry for the tangent, but I just realized I needed to tell you this. So refresh the page and we got another message here. So let me get back to my overview. So routes to the controller, then it looks up any data that it needs to, stores everything in instance variables. Then those instance variables become available in the view, and then your app renders the view to the web browser. So we got routes, controller, view. Okay, so and in reality it's going routes, controller, database, then back to the view from there. But I hope you get the idea. So what I want to do is actually show you a process that I think I called the, what did I call it? I gave it a fancy title in here. Yeah, follow the errors. That's what I called it. Sounds cool. Anyway, so let me demonstrate this. So we're going to go to dashboard. I hinted at this earlier. So if you go to dashboard, you get this no route matches get dashboard. So let's just go fix that. So you start in the routes, and this is very telling. If you practice this way, you're going to get the hang of a lot of stuff really quick. So we get /dashboard, and then we tell it somewhere we think we might want it to go. Let's just put it on the to-dos controller for now. In reality, you might want to put it somewhere else, but for now, just put it here. So we're telling it, go to the to-dos controller, and by the way, you could create another controller and give it another action, and it could go somewhere else, but let's just point it here and then refresh the page and see what we get. So we go here and now we say, oh, the action dashboard cannot be found on the to-dos controller. So let's go back over here and set up a dashboard. Okay, so now if we refresh this again, we're going to get a different error. Oh, okay, so now I found the dashboard action. Now there's no template to do /dashboard. So what we need to do now is we can come back down here in the views folder and create a new one and call it dashboard. And it is important that these things all are spelled properly. Now I save this, and if I refresh the page, it's going to render, but there's nothing. So let me go in here and just add a few things. So, hey, welcome to the dashboard. And I'm going to put this in a tag. Technically, you could do it without it, but then it's kind of not really HTML. Okay, hey, welcome to the dashboard. Okay, so that's cool, but let's do something really interesting, or more interesting anyway. So we've got this to-do.all, and I told you I was going to do something kind of bonus for you since you were watching the video. So I want to do prioritized to-dos. I'm making this up as I go. And then we're going to do to-do.prioritized. I hope I spelled that right. Now let's watch what happens. If I refresh the page, I'm going to get this undefined method, prioritized. So we're doing something just like we did back here on .all. But .all is actually defined in active record, which I mentioned earlier. So prioritized is something custom that we're kind of making up. But I want to show you how this model aspect works, I guess. So we can come in here and do def self.prioritized, and just defining this should get rid of the error, but it doesn't do anything for us. So if we do this, it's just going to render and it's nothing. So in here, what we can actually do is it's sort of like writing SQL, but not really. If you've ever dealt with that, this is you're dealing with active record, which is an ORM. For the ones of you who may have messed with this, for those of you who haven't, what we're going to do is we're going to write a custom way to look things up in the database. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here we can do something like, let's see, order by position, and we're going to do ascending. So what this should do, writing it like this, self.prioritize, allows us to say capital letter T to do. You'll see what I mean. When you do a capital letter and you call a model like this, it means you're doing like a database query for multiple to-do items. You'll understand more about that later. I know I'm saying that a lot, and it's true. It does take a while for some of this to make sense. But writing it self.prioritize as opposed to just prioritize allows you to deal with the database and multiple to-do items at once. So we've set at prioritize to-dos equal to to-do.prioritized. So let's come over here and let's grab prioritize to-dos, copy that, and then go back in our dashboard and say, I'm going to do basically exactly what we did on the other one, or what Rails did for you. And don't worry about the syntax yet. Hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. So we have a title, and we have position. I think in reality you probably wouldn't print out the position, but you know. Actually, let's put these in a list. So what you would normally do is something like this. You'd have a UL, unordered list, and then you would put these inside. And then you would have a list item, and then maybe we would do comma, separate that, and let's do like that, and we can do end right there. We don't need that. And let's try this. So back over here in the browser, we're going to refresh, and it's sorted by position. Now that's actually not surprising because that's the way that we created them. But what I want to show you is if we come back over here, maybe you decide that ones with higher number are a bigger priority. So you can flip this and then refresh it, and it's going to reverse them. Okay, so just to review really fast, and then we're going to be done. Remember, routes, then to the controller, then it looks up, you know, whatever stuff it needs from the database, and then it's going to render the view. So hopefully you have a pretty decent idea of how this works. What I would like you to do in order to really get this down is try to create some of your own controllers with your own actions and grab the data and just, I don't know, experiment with it and have fun. Hopefully this makes sense. As usual, post any questions, comments, feedback down in the comments. General questions, you can throw them over in the forum. Or any feedback from me, you can hit me up at steven@techmaker.tv. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful.